John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.
All the mountains and ice are beginning to melt. And history is changing and times are changing. What does that mean to us? The greatest opportunity to be a part of a shifting consciousness to bring more compassion, more caring, more love, and more support to our friends and neighbors. All the terrifying stuff, to me, only makes it more exciting, because you will never die. You are chosen to come to this world, and you chose to come to this world. End of story. You were chosen to come because the divine architect believes that there is no one better suited than you at a certain time, at a certain place, at a certain point in the unfoldment of the spiritual world into the physical world by way of you for an event to occur. You are the divine system that a physical spiritual matter, person or being or consciousness can move through you and manifest into this rock in the middle of a solar system. And you're here because they decided, as they're unfolding from that dimension of reality into this dimension of reality, there's nobody better than you to be able to execute that particular precise moment, whether it be once or 1,000 times, than you. So the fact that there may be anybody else on the earth just like you is 1 in 16 billion. Well, there's only 6 billion, 300 or 400 million suckers here. So guess what? You the one. So get over it. And stay out of your own way.
In the early 1980s, Israel and Lebanon were in the first Israeli-Lebanese war, the first war. Researchers from the United States performed an experiment in the Middle East. They trained individuals to feel the feeling as if peace has already happened. This was the very famous experiment. Orme, Johnson, Alexander, Davies, Chandler, Larimore were the authors of the experiment. The experiment was called the International Peace Project in the Middle East. The results of this experiment were so profound that they were published in the Journal of Conflict Resolution, Volume 32, 1988. So the reference is here if you'd like to see this for yourself. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. They trained individuals to go into the war-torn areas and feel the feeling as if peace has already happened. They did not judge the war. They did not judge the Israelis good or bad, or the Palestinians good or bad, or the Lebanese good or bad. There's no judgment, no ego. They simply went in and felt as if the peace has already happened. Just like David felt as if the rain has already happened. Just like the practitioners felt as if the woman is already healed. You see where we're going with this. And what happened was each time the practitioners performed this experience, peace happened in the Middle East. Terrorist activities stopped altogether. Crimes against people declined. Emergency hospital room visits declined. Automobile accidents declined. And when the people stopped their feelings, all of those statistics reversed. Everything went back to where it was. And the researchers said, well, maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a holiday. Maybe it's a full moon. Maybe there are more people on the streets today than yesterday. So they did the experiment again and again and again, and every time the results were the same. In fact, they were able to determine how many people it takes to feel peace for peace to happen in that area. And here's what they found. Very small number. They said if you can get the square root of 1% of your population to feel peace, peace will happen. What does that number look like? Well, let me show you the math. These are very small numbers. The square root of 1% of the population. If you have a city of 1 million people, how many people are in Milan? Do we know? Approximately? 5 million? So, okay. Yeah, well. So, muchos personas, right? Okay, if you have a city of 1 million people, here's how the formula works. You take the number of people, total number of people, multiply by 1%, so 1 million times 0.01 gives you the number 10,000. Okay, now you take the square root of 10,000, 100 people. In a city of 1 million people, if there are 100 people that know the language of peace, they can begin that experience of peace. What does that mean for our planet? Let's look at our planet. Earth has a population a little over 6 billion people now, close to 6.5. If we do the same thing, 1% of 6 billion people is 60 million people. If you take the square root of 60 million people, the number is just under 8,000, 7,746 people. There are 1,000 people in this room. 7 rooms like this can change the world. And that's just the beginning. What happens if many, many people come together on the internet, on the World Wide Web? They coordinate and create that peace. Well, it has happened. It's been done. Princeton University organized the studies, and while the people are feeling peace, all that happens is peace. The problem is that people stop feeling peace and then walk away from the experiment, and everything changes.
Where is your reality then? What happens to who you are in your evolution of yourself as a human being, but more importantly, as a spiritual being? You'll never die. To live in this world is an opportunity that you were earned to be able and to create and to hold a spiritual consciousness through some really turbulent times to come. You wouldn't be sitting in this room if you weren't ready. You're sitting in this room because you're getting another piece of data to be able to make decisions upon as you move forward in this world that is coming, the changing face of time. In our lifetime, we will bear witness to a cosmic event in the beginning of an age. It has upheaval, it has changes, it has great shifts and great perspectives, and some of it is a little frightening. Unless you realize that this happened, you chose to be here, and you were chosen to be here.
Hey guys, Andre Hodge, Seven of Truth and Infinite Potential Healing, Star-Lord, Crocodile, Wolverine, Aladdin, Dundee with you once more. Wishing you well. Hope you're going well. Hope you're owning the fact that you're a last mimsy galactic crazy diamond being here on Earth, going through the compressing and the challenges to have that be revealed as an aspect of who you are. I want to thank you for finding me. I hope you're having fun. I hope you've taken on board especially a lot of the suggestions and attitudes that I've alluded to in the last couple of videos, particularly enjoy the ride and the misconception of death. Enjoy the ride is basically to be able to whether it's the eye of your hurricane in your life or sail across all the undulations of the reality and stuff. Emotional mastery is a major foundational component to me doing my Galactic Special Forces stuff and all the videos and all the teachings and anchoring the healing space, especially for the 4, 5, 6 hour sessions that I normally do, because I'm investing so much into the individuals that seek me. It's pretty interesting times, and I want to offer you teachings that I've been trying to work out how to offer, because in order for me to do the Galactic Special Forces stuff, I had to have an assumption of what I'm about to share in this. I don't know if it's a series, I'll just add it to the multidimensional level method, to the 3D Madness theme playlist that I've been sharing. What I'm going to do is get into the Incarnation more, because it's very front and present right now, stuff going on. I think a lot of people have been they get distracted by certain attitudes and say energies I might be bringing. But what I've realized is over the last several months there's been a deliberate purpose on an instinctive level that I've sort of entertained sort of energies or attitudes and stuff like that, and I'm sort of really getting why now. And I've been sort of hitting the books pretty hard on information and people and teachers, and that's where I've, in say the last couple of videos, I've offered Dolores Cannon and Daniel Brinkley, because I've actually gone back to sort of a lot of the core teachers that I found back in when I started awakening up, and the 2010, 2011 era, where I sort of found these people and used them as a coordinate sort of information of truth to sort of triangulate what's going on and stuff. So what I'm going to do in this sort of overall teaching on the Incarnation War, because when I integrated it many years ago, that's where a lot of the missions revealed themselves. It was a huge component to actually contemplate. And Captain Marvel, she says, I've got this quantum computer processing thing going on where I can actually input all the data to spit out the algorithm of the understanding. So what I'm going to do is probably skip ahead a lot of the fundamental teachings to get this information out there, so the very advanced people can really integrate it and see it and then embody it and get the upgrades and activations they need. And those that need healing and stuff, you can get onto the fast track and realize why you need to get onto that ASAP. All right. Yeah, it's, anyone thinks that things are going to be lovey-dovey and kumbaya sort of stuff, it's interesting. A lot of the stuff I can't really go into on this platform and stuff, and it's not that I don't want to, and I'm still holding out that discernment's needed, but I'm feeling pretty confident that I get what I get, and that's where my energy has shifted to go into real sort of sensei kicking people in the guts to get them on their game. Because when the metaphor is when I used to do Australian rules football and I played a pretty high level up until like early teens and stuff, is that the coach I had, he used to grind us into the ground for practice, so when the game was on we were prepared. And I have suggested many, many times to go and watch Michael Jordan's The Last Dance on Netflix, because it's mystical training, it's Earth, you need to have that sort of attitude now, alright? And you have to have the willpower to hold your own and not be influenced by the sources of information and stuff. Because I'll show you a book that I had from quite an interesting Akashic reader that I found in 2010. This is one of his books, alright? To say stuff going on with people at the moment, alright? There's an interesting series called Utopia on Amazon, and it was on British TV many years earlier in a couple of series, and I've talked about charting and currency trading and stuff like that. So what I might do is just give you a bit of a metaphor of a chart that I sort of see as a pattern that's going on, right? This is a book that I learned a lot from back in my currency trading days, and I'll just show you a chart in there. So if you see this chart, alright, it's a bit hard to see. You see, the metaphor is, see how long it takes to grow, to improve, and how quickly things can go down, alright? What I used to do is aim to trade things short, which meant I would sell at the high and then buy at the low. It's called short selling, alright? Because I knew when things were going good, it would take a long time, but things go bad, it goes horrid very quick, alright? So the metaphor here is, when things go bad, you know, you think people, the best come out in people, but service itself really comes out. Things can fall apart very quick, and my whole teachings and my whole purpose is to empower the anchors that will hold it together and stuff for the rest when they go through all their stuff. A lot of the people at the very high level that I deal with, and I deal with very, very few. So the metaphor of me, I told you I went bankrupt in April 2012 because I did a lot of amazing stuff for people, and then it was just like set up for failure up until that, and I realized how little people give a shit about you, alright? They have their own, when they're in their crises, or they are a service of self, and when their crisis is over, they'll use you as their trampoline that they'll smash and they'll be okay, and they won't look back at the trampoline. But so I went through bankruptcy, and for 3 years I lived basically on $10 a day, and I walked 10 to 15 kilometers a day to save $1 or $2 just so I could afford the food and stuff. And that era very much toughened me up. It made me emotional because I couldn't even budget the life force for emotions. I rewired my emotional circuitry and stuff like that. So I feel very strong now because I've been through hardship during times of good. What I feel is a lot of people have had it easy, they've been very comfortable, they've not developed because their comfort breeds complacency. People are materialistic, they're not looking to develop because their agenda was materialistic gains. And so what's happening is that the rug, literally that comfort line, is being pulled from underneath us metaphorically, and the challenges are going to come, and a lot of people aren't going to survive. They're gone into fear and stuff like that. And my purpose of doing that death video was like, you need to probably, all of us need to get more comfortable with losing people potentially, alright? And I don't really want to get into it more, but stuff we're being advised to put in our body. If you go watch Utopia, the Amazon series, or the BBC series I mentioned, it might be a very powerful teaching, okay? And I don't want to scare people or anything. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, and be ready for whatever comes, alright? This is where the purpose of me, say, offering all the Galactic Special Forces videos and stuff, and what we went through to be able to be ready for them, each individually and stuff, despite being totally smashed in life, still operated on top of the game. So when the game was on, it was ready no matter what. So we used the hardship of the reality to get tougher. Just the metaphor, like I said, of the Michael Jordan The Last Dance, which is mystical training. It's like humanity, we are the best of the best. If you think you can be the best of the best sitting on your couch eating carbs and stuff like that, not doing any exercise, fitness, changing your body, nutritional habits, which I've suggested, I've done a couple of interviews related to nutrition. They might be great allies now, all right? And I've been sort of kicking butts of people around me to get them on their game. I've gone into lone wolf. Basically, I joke with Captain Marvel because basically I'm like, I've gone into castle mode. I put a moat out. I've got freaking giant crocodiles in the moat, and the drawbridge is up, and it's going fuck off energy. Like, you need to go across my vetting process to get to me now, and I'm not going to be allowed to be like your lifeline when crises happen and been crushed again like I have many times. All right, it's hardcore. I'm primed. I'm ready to go. Like, the sessions I'm doing are epic, and the people coming to me, thank you very much. And yeah, I feel like I'm on top of my game, ready to go. And so now I feel ready to actually offer this information. So that's a bit of an intro. It's quite long. So I hope that primes you and gets you focused, and you tune into my intent with what I'm saying and what I've been sharing for a long time. It's time to hit the books and get on top of your game, all right? ASAP. The next couple months are going to be very, very, like right now, this day, late September, people don't really understand a lot of the big sort of radical moves that seem to be going on, but the perspective I've got is, say the West, the culture has been, aspects of the culture have been weaponized to disintegrate us from the inside out. So there's actually been a real covert war that's been going on that's actually eroded us from the inside out, all right? And the actions and the acceleration of sort of things are really to brace for what's about to unfold, because I think certain aspects of our society on the 3D level, so if I show you an image, it's a bit beaten up now, but hopefully you can see it. In the 3D, there's the 3D and then there's multi-dimensional, right? So in the 3D, the abrasiveness of conflict between, say, governments creates an energy, because from one perspective, the grid, the unity of the false grid is falling down, so there's got to be conflict to create the gap filler sort of, to maintain the narrative sort of aspect. And I'm appreciative of it. Like I said in the last couple of videos, I see the dark aspects as the motivator to get the people that are meant to get into a frequency match for what's about to unfold where they're meant to be or not. A lot of people are going to have to leave. All right? You can't be complacent anymore. Invest in your healing, trust me. All right? And the multidimensional aspect of what I'm going to get into here as well is basically the Incarnation War has been foundational to everything on Earth for a long time. All right? So yeah, what I'm going to do, I'll give you an overview. What I'm intending to do is create 4 videos. I'm going to try and not make them too long, maybe about 40, 45, 50 minutes, which are probably too long as it is, because most people don't have the focus and the willpower to listen to something for that long. But you're going to have to own it and get onto it and stop being soft, all right? Like, it's time to know what's going on, and so you can calibrate yourself to and act based on truth, not on the narrative and all the stuff going on. You have to actually find the will to actually persevere and break those influence potentially chips, blah blah blah, that are shutting you down. All right, you can do whatever you want, but maybe it's time to get help and get onto it quick. All right, so what I'm going to do here is break up this teaching into probably 4 videos. The first 2 I'm going to employ Dolores Cannon. I've shown you a couple of clips of her, I think, in the last 2 videos, and I've introduced her. She was a hypnotherapist. She died in 2014, unfortunately, and she's basically like a grandmother spirit that you feel and stuff. And her perspective is very loving and very positive and all that sort of stuff. Well, I've given you the Galactic Special Forces stuff, and it's a lot more complex than that. But her teachings is a really nice baby step, trainer wheel sort of intro to it that will help get to the more complex stuff, and I'll offer them in the second 2, where I'll probably break it up. What I might do is show my image that I created relative to the answer of the Incarnation War, because I'd done, like, it came to me on a train ride to my work, where I was going to work to the demonic portal kitchen, and on a Friday, I think, and I remember it very distinctly. I was riding, I used to listen to meditation music on the train ride there just to get into it, and then walk about a kilometre or so to the workspace, and then I used to chill out before, because it was like an hour in the kitchen doing the hard lifting stuff is like gym. So I used to do 20 hours of gym a week, really, really in a brutal environment. It was very like rock and a hard place. Like, I had to have guard and all this, and all the people were all being puppeted with the energies there and shit, and trying to undermine me and the family, and they would use my brother as an get under my skin sort of thing to undermine me and all that sort of shit. So I was there on an offensive aspect to defend my life from the influences, because I also have to respect free will, paramount. All right, so this image, one day when I was driving, and I used to meditate and use the physical training and all that to be strong for the Galactic Special Forces missions. And it, as I said, like Captain Marvel calls me a quantum computer processing sort of thing, and I call myself, what I get is like a magic 8-ball. I feed all myself with all the data, and I get the answer output, and make something very complex elegant. And this is my teaching. This is all the information I gathered over the 8 years up until that point to be able to explain it like this, because I had it as a default in me. And I'm not going to explain it too much now. I'm just going to let you see it and hear my voice. But basically, I worked out a very elegant way to actually explain the Incarnation War and visualize it, because a lot of the things I do is in an effort to accelerate people's development. Like, I think, say for example, the Conscious Explorer video series was about between 10 and 20, maybe 30,000 hours of study and repeating studies and stuff like that. And what I appreciated was most people in this world, they don't have that time. They've maybe got a couple hours a week, all right? So what I would do is I would condense all that 20, 30, 10 to 15 to 20, 30,000 hours of research into the 40 hours of the 22 episodes of Conscious Explorer series, in an effort to accelerate people in their development. But there's also a thing where people don't appreciate it. They actually need to go through the effort and stuff. So it was just an effort to assist those that would come, to get them up to speed ASAP. So that's what I can do. I can sort of pull together all the complexity of stuff and create simple sort of solutions. Though the drawing might be a bit complex in my writing and stuff like that, what I'm going to do in the part 3 and 4 of this later on, I'll break each image down into many parts to explain each section, to help visualize it on a grander scale, and the light and dark, and the Incarnation War with the third party, like the multidimensional beings that are messing with everyone to take control and stuff. From Andrew's perspective, that where we're at now, with an opportunity that we've all chosen to go forward in time to be here now. And what's going on with humanity and the civilization at the moment is that there's probably a consciousness threshold relative to what I said in the big picture in Foundational Components Part 1, relative to the energies coming in. Okay, so if I go back to the image, so what's going on now is, over a grand period of time, is there's an opportunity to restore the balance, so to speak, right? From 7th to 3rd dimensional, and then there's this extra push going on right now that potentially a lot of elimination will be to reduce the numbers so the consciousness threshold of a unity isn't there, all right? But I'm also appreciative of it because most of the people are asleep, and there needs to be like a rocket up the butt of most people to get them motivated. And that's why the importance of that past release of the misconception of death and therefore existence itself. It's to disarm that polarity against death and what might death be. It's in many ways humanity has sort of asked for this, so I appreciate the scales of that. Right? So let me focus on this, the Incarnation War Part 1 and Part 2, which are going to be related to Dolores Cannon's teachings. And the other thing, over that period between, say, this Dolores Cannon video, I think it was about 2008, 2007, 8 or 9. Yeah, I've got a couple of books of Dolores Cannon. So I've got that. So yeah, I was very fortunate. Dolores Cannon did a tour of Australia in 2011, and she was, the era of that, the lecture is 2010, I think, because I just checked before I did this when she actually released that book. It was December 25th, 2011. So she was writing it and she was doing a tour of it, and she was in her 80s. She was amazing, just a machine, right? Very beautiful, and very fortunate to get 2 autograph books. She was very tired and stuff, and in our lecture she was too tired to do the group sort of past life regressions, so she actually gave out a CD where you can actually do it, all right, from your own home, and I've still got that somewhere, a DVD. And what happened with me, there was this guy around Santos Bonacci, which I said in the Truth Frequency video, that was doing very deceitful sort of inlaid hypnosis into the conversations we had, and I was going through that at the time, and just very, very naive and stuff, and but it was very awesome to actually have a personal experience and see her live and stuff. And I greatly appreciate her perspectives and her positiveness of it, but the polarity is much higher as well, right? There's good and bad, okay, because it's all about karma resolution and experience and all that sort of stuff, and the stuff out there is just epic, and to say that everything is good is not accurate, okay? But I don't want to get into that now. What I want to do is, my intent with these first two are to include clips of the convoluted Universe Book 4 lecture that I've sort of alluded to before, and this time I'm going to be a bit more thorough in the clips I offer, because her perspectives will be a great foundation to get to the advanced level that I will do in the parts 3 and 4. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a bit, introduce it, and then include a clip, then break this stream of mine, and then talk again, and then introduce the next clip, and then I think I've got about 5 clips all up, and it's about maybe an hour and a bit. So with me talking and stuff, I might have 2 videos that are about an hour and a half long, so breaking them up will be a lot easier to digest. So I've basically at this stage got 5 separate clips of Dolores Cannon, and in this first video I'm going to show 3, and in the second one I'll show 2. The first one is just sort of overall, these 3 clips are to give you a scope from her perspective that will be a beneficial thing to hear a different perspective. Like, you can discern me on everything I say and assume I'm wrong until it's proven right. A lot might be hard to be proven, but I feel Dolores will be a great stepping stone to get into the complex teachings that I said, because I've been holding back on doing this for a while, but I haven't really found the way to actually get to it, because I think it's quite hard for a lot of people to talk about. But even just me offering the misconception of the death videos is an effort to sort of get people ready for that. Early on in the multidimensional method to 3D madness video series, I actually offered one at the soul level of perspective, which I highly recommend going back and watching, because that's the level of sort of like enjoy the ride. Like, if you operate from the soul level of perspective, you don't get too much caught up in the drama of the 3D when like that chart that I sort of imaged, that when everything can go bad pretty quick, right? Like, most of the people, they talk a big game, but when it comes down to it, they're very service to self, right? So I just don't want this to be too long, and I'm going to get into the clips, all right? Just to give a bit of an intro of them, and then let you watch them and not say too much. It's just, you take away what you get. The consciousness Tetris will be playing depending on where you're at. But yeah, I hope these will be really great teachings for people to help them get up to speed ASAP, because it's going to be needed. Right? So the first clip is about a bit of an overview of Dolores and how she operates, how she came about the information and stuff like that. She doesn't acknowledge her being a psychic. She's a pure psychologist that went into hypnosis, and then she just takes people a lot deeper than most people are willing to go, because they don't want to see or hear what they want to hear. What she basically found was she was going to this deep level of the oversoul, or the source of all knowledge and stuff, and through different people we're getting puzzle pieces to forming a pattern of her books that she's done. And it's a really I really appreciate that pattern recognition and that vastness of this. And she talks about doing thousands of clients, and that's really phenomenal. You know what I mean? You can't really like people talk a big game, like they say they're a healer, but they're actually like they've just done healing training. They're not doing any sessions and stuff. So someone being at that scale and calling that out and going around the world and training people up in her methodology and stuff. If you're pushing the reality, you know, if you're pushing against the 3D and bringing something like that, you better be on your game and you better be authentic. Otherwise, you know, you'll get shown up. And anything that pushes the line, like say my information, it pushes what people are willing to accept. There's going to be a massive level of resistance. And what happens is most people look for the wrong and the right to justify not exploring. It's like, phew. I'm so glad he did that, because now I don't have to listen to him at all, but it's not the case. You know, I include people and other people that I've dealt with that I've talked about, but it's not about the personal thing, it's about the data. And so I'm always following truth and stuff and offering it from my perspective. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, right? So yeah, it's an interesting overview and stuff, and listening to how she operates, and yeah, it's a good discernment opportunity for her and stuff.
So this is important for you to understand when I do. A lot of these people, I think, do know my books, because I've been into hypnosis for 40 years, 30 years doing the past life regression. But then I found that was only the tip of the iceberg, and it took a totally different turn after that. And now I'm doing therapy you won't even believe, in addition to finding all the knowledge that I've accumulated. But the main thing I'm teaching now is we have found how to have instantaneous healing. And that's what I'm teaching. This is something that happened in my work, the tip of the iceberg with the past life regressions. Then I found a way to contact the source of all knowledge. And that's what I'll be talking about, because that's where my information comes from. The source of all knowledge. Why not work with something that big? And that's the one that has been doing the healing as I work with the clients. I don't do anything. I'm just a facilitator to allow it to happen and come through the clients I work with. But I've also been working in the UFO field for 25 years, and I've written 4 books on that. But you have to understand, I don't channel, I'm not a psychic, I'm a hypnotherapist. I call myself the reporter, the investigator, the researcher of lost knowledge, because that's the way it began to be, to turn into finding things that nobody knew. To me, that is so exciting to be able to do that. So we got into the UFO field also. It's just like there wasn't anything that I wasn't getting involved with. But I was doing the past life regressions is when I discovered this power that I'm going to talk about. Those of you who have read my books, I call it the subconscious. But it is not the subconscious the way it is defined by the psychiatrists. That's a childish part of the mind. That's the part that hypnotists use when they want to stop smoking, lose weight, do the habits. That's not the part of the mind that I work with. I didn't know what to call it, because it began coming through all the people I was working with. Then I found a way to call it in, and that's why I'm teaching that. I call it the subconscious. You may want to call it the oversoul, the higher self, the higher consciousness. But it is so big and so huge, it has the answers to everything. And it has tremendous power. And this is what I've contacted during the session when we're doing the therapy. And I've done thousands and thousands of people. And so if I'm getting the same information and the same contact through all of these people, you know that I had to discover something. To me, it's very valuable, because especially when it comes to the healing. And I'm teaching my courses now. One place is the college in Santa Fe. they're giving 1.5 college credits now for my class that I give there. And I'm doing it all over the world. The doctors everywhere are interested in it because we have found a way, well, to bypass the medical profession anyway, which is what I like. But I have spent hours just talking about the cases and the things we have done there. But we're not going to do that today. Today we're going to focus on new information that I've gotten. To me, is the missing pieces of the UFO puzzle. Now, over all these years, I have been getting bits and pieces of information that I put in my books. I've written 15 books about all the adventures I've had doing hypnosis and using these methods. So a lot of it dealt with the history that I discovered and wrote about that. But then I began to get into something much different, especially when I call it the subconscious. They say, we don't care what you call us, we'll work with you. But when I found out when I got into that, information was coming through the clients I was working with. I don't interrupt the session. I'm there for the therapy and the counseling with the person. But when something is needed, a new theory that I have to know about or new information, they just interrupt the session and tell me, Dolores, this is what you need to know for your next book. Now, so it did give me more and more information. I've learned to trust them totally. They're so full of love. I call them they. I don't know what else to call them. They say they are a group, but it is so high that it has all knowledge. So when I began working with the UFO field, I thought I was getting everything there. But now I'm even getting more. And as I look back on my books, I can see bits and pieces that I wrote about over the years, and then it was isolated. Well, now in the last couple of years, it's begun to fall together and finally make sense. And I can see a pattern that I finally see the reason for it all happening. And it's not going to be what you think it is. I'm just trying to try not to go too much over your heads. I don't know how you are in metaphysics. I don't know how much information you can take before I completely blow your minds, I guess you would say. They started out with me with just the little baby steps and little spoon feeding. And I said, if they hadn't have done that, I would never have understood it. I would have thrown it all away and say, no, I don't understand. It doesn't make sense. They have to spoon feed you a little piece of information at a time, let you digest that, then you get a little more, and it gets a little more complicated as you go along. But now it's really getting into some very deep stuff. That's why I'm writing the Convoluted Universe series. And each one of those books has gotten more and more complicated. And every time I think I have everything you could possibly want to know, they'll say, oh no, there's more, there's more. So the information I'm going to give today is for Convoluted Universe Book 4. The book is not out yet. I'm still putting it together. But the information pours out of the people I work with. And that's all I have to do is put it together, which is no small task. It's like putting a puzzle together. You get a piece from one client, a piece from another, and then I put it together and it begins to form a picture. So that's what it's beginning to do now. One of the reasons I'm getting information the other investigators are not, especially the UFO investigators, is because I work in the deepest possible level of trance, which is called the somnambulistic level. It's the deepest level you can work at. The other UFO investigators have told me they won't touch it. They won't go there. Even Bud Hopkins told me, oh, no, I'm not going to work in that level. He said because he's afraid of what he would find there. But what you do is you find the truth. Because in the lighter levels of trance, the person's personality is very present. Any of you who have had hypnosis and past life regressions at the lighter levels, you say, oh, I made the whole thing up. You know, it's silly. Why did I bring that up? I read it in a book or I saw it in a movie. The conscious mind is very present. We don't want the conscious mind. The conscious mind is the stupidest part of the human being. It doesn't know anything. Thinks it does, and it tries to judge everything. We don't want that part. So what I do is get the conscious mind totally out of the picture, so it can't interrupt, it can't interfere with what we're finding. Because otherwise, it'll be interrupting, saying, oh, this is silly, I'm making it up, etc., etc. Now, the other investigators have told me they work at the lighter levels of trance. So when the person is having a UFO experience, they're caught in the emotion, the fear, and they can't get past that. You don't want that. That's the human mind. The human mind is distorting the experience. So when all of my work, I work at the deepest possible level, removing the conscious mind out of the picture. The person has no memory at all of what has happened during the entire session. They wake up and they'll say, oh, I'm sorry, I fell asleep on you. They don't remember what we have covered. You see how much more valuable it can be if you get the conscious mind interference out of the way.
So I hope you enjoyed that. Now I'm going to get into the second clip of Offering, and what she gets into the challenges of being on Earth, and what's going on with the body and stuff like that, and what actually Earth is from the universal level, and how challenging it is, and the stuff done here to limit the body and things like that. So I hope you enjoy this. I'll see you on the other side.
Now I'm going to say they, you'll know who I'm speaking about, the ones that are helping with this. They say the ideal situation, especially with UFO experiences, is that the person never remember anything. They don't want to interfere with the person's life. They've been coming since the beginning of the world. So they've nothing new, but they don't want to interfere with the person's life. So they said it would be better off if the person never remember anything so they could continue on with their life. But they said they have no control over the chemistry of the brain. Our chemistry of our brain is now being influenced by the pollutants in the air, the additives in the food. If the person is on alcohol, drugs of any kind, recreational drugs or medical drugs, anything like that is distorting the chemistry of the person's brain. So if they have an experience, they are remembering it in a distorted fashion, not the way it really occurred. Can that make sense to you? It's going through that fear filter, because if somebody doesn't understand something, they're afraid of it. Fear is the strongest emotion a human has. So that is, you're going to bring in that fear, and it will distort the real thing that happened. I've done this for so many years in so many cases. I work with investigators all over the world. Somebody will have a case that they will work with, tell me about all the horrible things that were done to that person. I will have the same client, and we will get to the truth. It's a totally different story, because it's not being distorted with the conscious mind. Afterwards, a person will say, if that's what happened, I can handle it, because they find out it was not at all what they thought it was. But to me, that's therapy, when you can help the person to find out the truth and move on from there. So over the years, I've been getting these stories, and they're totally different than the other investigators are getting. Because to me, the ETs are a wonderful, positive group, because I've found out why they're coming, I know what they're doing, and it is all for the benefit of mankind. Why bring in this fear part when it's not necessary at all? So I want you to understand that, because we're going to have to go back and explain this so you can understand the information I'm getting now. Okay, first of all, well, nobody has ever had a UFO experience unless they've agreed to it anyway. I know they don't believe that, but that is the truth. Now, like I said, I've worked with thousands and thousands of people. We have gone through every kind of past life you could possibly imagine. Every one of you have had past lives. I've not found a single person who has not. And it doesn't mean just Earth. Earth is one school that you're going to, but it's not the only school. You've been around forever, and you're going to continue to be around forever. Earth is a very young planet, isolated over here in this part of the galaxy for a reason. They don't want us contaminating the rest of the universe. They're really afraid of us with our violence, so they're keeping us isolated. But you've been around ever since you were created, having all kinds of adventures before coming to Earth. You've lived on other planets, other dimensions, things you can't even possibly imagine. I have had people going to all of these different places. And you've all done that before deciding to come to Earth. This is just a school, but it's a school where you can't skip a grade, but you can have to repeat a grade if you don't get it right. And you don't get out of Earth school until you can graduate. This means you have to experience absolutely everything. So that's why I want you to understand, I hope that everybody understands reincarnation anyway. I don't want to start at the beginning of that anyway. But you have a body. You are not a body. This is just a suit of clothes, a costume you're wearing right now to play this part in this play. It's all it is a play, a game. It's an illusion. This is what you're wearing right now to play this part. But you've had many other costumes you've worn, other planets, other dimensions. Some of them you wouldn't even think were alive. But you have done it all. Now you've come to Earth. Earth is the most challenging planet in the universe. They don't want to come here. It's very, very difficult to live on Earth. In the Earth school, you learn emotions and limitations. And there are many places in the universe, other planets, where they don't have those kind of lessons. But it's a difficult planet to live on because of that. They said they admire you when you say you want to come to Earth, because it takes a lot of bravery to come here. This is the lowest, densest planet there is. The energy is very, very low, very, very dense. So can you imagine they don't want to come here to live? But you learn a great deal by being here. But you all chose to come.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. It's a pretty cool clip, as all of them are. So this third part, this will be the final clip I offer in this first Incarnation War Part 1, Dolores Cannon Perspective Part 1. So what she gets into is the incarnation process and karma and the mind wiping and stuff like that. She also introduces how we might have agreements and soul contracts with the ETs and off-world allies and stuff like that. So she expands quite a bit from what normal people are willing to accept, which is really cool. And that's why I sort of offered her in these first two videos as a good stepping stone, because a lot of these concepts will be quite challenging for people and stuff. So if you include it with, like I said, the misconception of death and therefore life itself, where I introduce sort of past life regression stuff as a modality that's out there, you need to assume a lot potentially to accept all this stuff. So yeah, this will be another great clip, and I think you'll get a lot from it, and hearing someone else's perspectives and her frequency and stuff and her grandmother sort of energy, it'll be very beneficial. So enjoy. I'll see you on the other side.
Now, when I take people into the past lives, whenever you leave the life, you go to the spirit side, and I've written books on this. What is it like to die? Where you go on the other side, all the places you go to. You always go through what is called a life review. You look over the life you have just left, and you see all the things you've done, all the things you've said, every experience you've ever had. But you also see them through the eyes of everybody you've been involved with. And when you start looking at it, it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I hurt them that bad. I didn't know what I said affected them in that way. You're seeing it from a totally different direction. And there is no God sitting up there on a throne who is going to punish you and judge you. You look at your life and you judge yourself. There's no harsher judge than you yourself. And you're the one who makes the arrangements with the other souls you have harmed and created karma with. Let's go back and do it again, because you never get out of it until you've worked it out. These are important points because I'm going to bring them up as we go along. I hope you understand karma anyway. But you have created this with other people. And you have a discussion with these souls before you're going to come back. You'll say, we didn't do a very good job of it, did we? Let's go back and do it again. This time you be the husband, I'll be the wife. Or you be the mother, I'll be the child. You can reverse roles around any way you want, because it is just a play. We're just here experiencing this right now. So when you are making these plans, you make your plan when you're going to come back on what you will do, or at least hope to accomplish. It doesn't matter if you don't accomplish everything, at least if you try. You make a plan on what you want to try to accomplish. Now, when you are making those plans, the ETs are also very much involved, because they're all experiencing lives going back and forth also. And they will talk to you and say, you know, while you're on Earth this time, we're going to be involved in this project. Would you like to be part of it? And you say, okay, it sounds interesting. I'll volunteer to be part of this project. Now, over there, everything looks simple, looks easy. They'll say, oh, I can do all of that. But then when you come here, it's not that easy, because you get caught up in the emotions. Everybody comes in with their own little plan, and everything clashes. There's all the emotions you have to live with. And you don't realize that when you say, I'm going to do this and come back. But another trick to the whole thing is, when you come in, you have your plan, you know what you want to accomplish. All the parts are very clear over there, but when you get here, you don't remember anymore. Because as soon as you come into the body, all memory is erased. So you come in with the blinders on. I have people that I've taken through the birth experience. And they're saying, I got to remember. And then they're being born, and they'll say, I don't remember anymore. I asked them one time, wouldn't it be easier if we remembered our plan, if we remembered what we were going to try to accomplish, if we remembered our association with other people, wouldn't that be easier? They said, no, it wouldn't be a test if you knew the answers. So you have to come in and fumble around till you get back to remembering again. That's what's happening right now. Things are changing in the world. We call it the veil is thinning. It's called the awakening. The veil is beginning to lift. We're finally beginning to figure out why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing, because this is a very important time in the world to be here right now. But you all volunteered to be here right now, and that's the important thing. Okay. Now, in order to understand what I'm going to be telling you, you have to go back to the beginning of the world. That's all the way back to explain it. Because when you come to Earth, you live lives after life after life. You have hundreds and hundreds of lives because you have to understand every single situation. You have to be every nationality. You have to be every religion. You have to live on every continent in the world. You see the amount of knowledge you must accumulate? You can't do all of that in one lifetime. This can take hundreds and hundreds of lifetimes to learn all of these things before you can go back and graduate. So you accumulate karma during that time. What goes around comes around. That's a law of the universe. It must be paid back. So if you've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of lives, a lot of us get stuck. We're just making the same mistake again and again and again instead of moving forward. They said, doesn't matter to them how long it takes you to learn a lesson. You have eternity. Do you want to take eternity to learn it? Because every time you come back with karma, you are put together with the same people, same circumstances, only now it's even a little harder until you finally learn the lesson. That's what I mean by the awakening. The veils start lifting. We have gotten trapped in karma. We're going round and around in the wheel of karma instead of progressing. And this is very important to the story that I'm going to be telling you. Okay. But in the very, very beginning, and I've lectured on this other times at this conference, we were created by the ETs. So they have been involved with us since the very, very beginning. This is why they have so much interest in us, because they have always taken care of us since the very beginning. In the very beginning, whenever there are councils, there's councils over solar systems, there's councils over galaxies, there's councils over universes. They're all very set plans and rules and regulations that everything is run by. So whenever a planet reaches the point when it can support life, this is very, very important in the history of that planet. And it goes into the council in the history books. The planet is now ready to receive life. It has to be cooled down to the point where life can exist. Now, I have taken people back, and see, I don't lead these people. They just go to these past lives. Some of these people have gone back to when the world was being created. I've had them be part of when the universes were being created. You've all done that. You've all been co-creators. You imagine the power you have and you don't even realize it. You were here. You were able to do those things. It means you can do them again once you understand that. I've had them go back to where the oceans were being created, and they were part of all of that. And I've also had them there when the volcanoes were erupting and life couldn't form on Earth yet because the atmosphere was too full of ammonia. So they had to wait till it cooled down enough that life could form. They said this was all done by what they call the archaic ones, the ancient ones. And this means they've been around forever. They said in the very beginning, the archaic ones did it because that was how they were formed. And as they went out into space and began to travel, their job was to create life on any planet that was suitable to have life. And people always say, well, how does God fit into this picture? This is a way of putting the evolutionist theory and the creationist theory together, because God is very much involved in the picture. They call him the source of everything, and that's where we all began. Every one of us started with the source, including the ETs. They are closer to God, if you want to call him that, than we will ever be, because they've been following his instructions since the beginning, but also they depend on him for their very life. They don't consume food the way we do. They absorb light through their bodies. And we're eventually getting to that point. We're all progressing in that direction. They absorb light through the skin. And I said, well, where does the light come from? It comes from the source. So they are closer to him than we will ever be. And they have been receiving instructions since the beginning of time. You go here, you go there, this is what they do. Many of them never go back to their home planets. Many of them don't even have a home planet to go back to because it's been destroyed. So this is their job, to just go from place to place, checking on these things. Can you imagine how many eons of time this would take as you had to go and keep progressing and checking all of this? Because it would be thousands and thousands of years on each part of all of this. So when the Earth finally cooled down enough to support life, they said go to Earth and introduce life on a cellular stage. And they never know what the life is going to look like. The important thing is to get life started. Start it with a single cell organism, and then it will multiply. To get life of some kind going, they don't care what it forms into as long as it is life and begins to grow. First it'll be plants, then animals. It takes a long time. I'm probably going to have to condense this down some because there's a great deal of information to cover. But they go back from time to check on it and see, is this growing? Are they turning into multi-celled organisms? I've had people go back to past lives when they were the seeders, the ones who were doing the planting of these cells. And other ones go back to where they were the recorders, who would check and see how are things going? How are the plants developing? How is everything moving along? I think if you look at these this way, you'll see the ETs are not at all what you think they are. They've been very involved with us since the very beginning. But as you gradually progressed, they said you have no idea how fragile life is, because they would go back sometimes and they would find something, a multi-celled organism had begun, and then they would check on it again and it had fallen apart and the planet was lifeless again. Then there was a lot of great sadness about it, because they said life is so fragile, it has to be cared for, it has to be nurtured to get it to grow. So this is why they've been so involved with us, because they really care about us and it is their job. But as life went along and things did begin to, I'm going to condense here, they began to have life and it went into the animal stages. Each stage was taken care of by them and developed by them. Most of the animals were brought from other planets to see what would grow here, what would adjust here. So it's been a very long events of all of the whole things leading up to humans. Then it came to time to introduce humans. A lot of this is in my books, so you can find out about it. But as humans were introduced, they looked at this planet and they said, let's give this beautiful planet a creature with free will and see what he does with it. Believe me, they're not happy. What is he going to do with it if we give him free will? Well, we're supposed to do what we are doing now. But the law of non-interference is another one of the rules. Give it free will, and stand back and see what they're going to do with it. And then they are not allowed to interfere with the development of a civilization. It's the Star Trek rule, but believe me, it's not fiction, it's very real. You have to let the people do what they're going to do, and you can't interfere. So, as time went on, man began to develop from the animals, and it was a half animal, half human for a long time. Then you're going to have to introduce civilization. No, in all through history, you never heard of any caveman suddenly coming out of his cave and saying, I'm going to plant something and see if it's going to grow. I'm going to learn how to harvest. It's not done that way. Every culture in the world has the legends of the culture bringer. You know, the Indians have their corn woman. There's always the culture bringer who brings some kind of civilization and knowledge. They come and they teach them how to plant. They bring fire. In all of these legends, they always come and show the developing species how to learn how to grow. And in all of these legends, the culture bringer always came from the sky or from across the water in all of the legends. Now, as this began to happen, they would give them the next thing they needed. And I asked them, well, isn't that interference if you're giving them something? They said, no, we give them the next gift at the next time they're supposed to have it in their time in history. What they do with it is up to them. And they said, most of the time they don't use it the way we want them to use it. They aren't doing it the way we wanted them to do it. Most of the time they turn things into weapons, as you well know, which they weren't intended to be. So they said, that's when I said, well, can't you just go back and say, you're not doing it right? They said, that is interference. We give it to them a gift one time. What they do with it is up to them. If we go and do anything else, it's interference. So they've been sitting there shaking their heads all of these years as they watch us develop, wanting us to go in the right direction. So all of this went along for many years, and a lot of times these culture bringers would live among the people. And because they live as long as they want to, ETs don't die until they're ready to die. They have complete control over their body. They live as long as they want to. Then, I lost my thought there for a minute. Because they live as long as they want to, they brought the legends of the gods in all of these countries of the world. You've all heard the legends of the different gods. That were the ETs living with them to teach them and progress the civilization. Well, as we began to get too many people in the world, they can no longer come and live among us and tell us what they're supposed to do. So now, when it's time for a new invention, a new advancement to be brought into our world, it's put into the atmosphere. Whoever picks it up and invents it is the one who gets the credit for it. You know, many people all over the world are always working on the same inventions at the same time, when the time is right. They don't care who invents it as long as it's in the timeline that it is supposed to be. So they're still helping us in that way, giving us the next step along the way. Okay. So this is the way it's being done now. And they've been still monitoring us and watching us the whole time, shaking their heads and saying, when are these kids going to get it right? They're really afraid of us because of our violence. They said we'll never be able to join with them and work with these communities, the galactic communities, until we get rid of our violence. But it all goes back to the fact that we came from the animals, and we still have that animal nature. But we're the violent ones, and they're afraid of us. That's why they don't want to have any more involvement with us than they have to. Okay, so
hey, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you've stuck around until this end of the third part, and I'm going to wind this up very quickly. Yeah, it's really interesting, her perspectives, and I hope if you've never seen her or seen this lecture, you've gained a lot out of it, and I hope you stick around for the next part. There's a movie out there called Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise, and I don't know if you've seen it or not. I love it, and the metaphor is it's a bit like, you know, you think everything's going to be all cool and calm and collected, and then your mind gets wiped, and then you're basically thrown into the war, a bit like that movie. And that movie's really cool because it's about time travel and stuff, and I've got a cool teaching about the blue blood species that Tom gets the blood from in another video. But yeah, it's in theory, it's a bit like what I've said about money and trading, all right? Existence is a lot different from theory to actually trading with money, all right? Like when I found I was trading with money versus paper trading is just theory trading, looking at the charts and then executing it. It's easy. As soon as you got money involved, it's like you got literally skin or life force, because money is an encapsulation of life force. If you've gone through the foundational concepts, part 1 to 3 that I've released so far, I make the relationship between money as an encapsulation of life force technology. When you've actually got your life force involved, it's brings up all the emotion and all the uncertainty and all the technology engagement and stuff. So yeah, if you've had a very challenging life and experience and stuff like that, I hope this first one and the next 3 will be great allies to comprehending why that is and how courageous you are and how powerful you are for enduring it. So I'm just going to wind this out, and I hope you've gained a lot from it. I look forward to seeing you next time, and I'll look forward to releasing part 2 pretty quickly, because I'm doing this all in one big stream. So I'm aiming to have the 2 done pretty quick, because the game is on now on Earth, guys. Alright, so thank you for finding me. I hope you engage me for a healing. We'll see where we can go with that. It would be the ideal time to start investing in yourself on that level if you've never done it. You got to have the courage and willpower to explore, and I know I will be able to help accelerate a lot of stuff. That's your choice, and I'm very clear on how I do it. Like, you have to engage me, go to my website, and then transfer the money over, and then we'll go from there. I won't be trying to sell myself or interacting or justifying anything, because my sensitivity's gone off the charts and I'm in game on mode. Alright, so thank you for finding me. See you next time, guys. Lots of love. Andre out.
John Lilly once put it this way: there are no limits at all to the human mind whatsoever, except those we impose on ourselves because of our beliefs. And those limits are also beliefs to be transcended. And that's a view that suggests that the possibilities of human transformation are virtually infinite. And we have no way of knowing the outer horizon of what it means to be human.
And really, to understand all this, everything, you have to go very, very deep into a study of history, consciousness, neurophysiology, everything. You have to be the supreme eclectic type of leaning, and you really have to be wanting to know who you are and what everything's about.
And the thing that you'll find when you go to sacred sites, if you're very humble about it, is that you are on a personal journey, and the sacred site will respond to you in a way that is appropriate only to you. The information is always what you are searching for. And it's the intent you give that energy that defines whether it is used for right action or not. And it is inside these sacred spaces that you will be reminded that you are a god, that you are a bright star.
So what you're trying to do is move through the course without ricocheting off walls or creating karma. You're trying to slide through things smoothly. How do you do that? It's called flowing. There's a technique that you can do that will allow you to touch some part of your inner being that has more knowledge than your conscious state does.